Now, a day in the life of a typical support manager would typically involve working on escalations, trying to find those needles in the haystack, which is which cases are likely to escalate and preventing those escalations, monitoring support health, analyzing, as I said, trends and outliers, of course, coaching and developing their team, and collaborating with the broader teams, not just your support teams, maybe with account managers, maybe with the customer success teams. Now, what we're going to see now in the next demo is how we leverage the ambient AI agents that are working behind the scenes to, for example, help a support manager do an escalation workflow where if there is a case that is likely to escalate, what are some of the triggers that the system is sending to the user to help them prevent those escalations? Almost like next best actions, not just insights, even the next best actions. Let's move on to the demo. So now this is the view that most of our customers most likely are very familiar with. This is our landing page, the console. This is where I, as a support leader, let's say, start my day. I want to basically look at what are some of the cases that need my attention. There you also have the likely to escalate cases. Let's say I've picked on this particular case. This is exactly the same case that came from Agentforce, where there is a history of interactions. There are a lot of negative signals and sentiments, including frustration signals, as we can see. Now, let's say I know as a support leader, and this also has at the very top on the right-hand side in red, the likely to escalate tag. So this is one of those cases that our machine learning models is predicting as a case that will most likely escalate. So this is where I start an escalation review, which is powered by our ML models. Now, a couple of things, as you can see on the screen. One, it gives me a very quick summary of why does our ML model think this case is likely to escalate. For example, in this particular case, maybe certain SLAs may have been missed. The current agent either may not have the right skills to be solving this issue, or maybe they don't have a good history of working with this particular account. Or you can also see the agent is already working on many other escalations. So this is not the only case. There are other high-profile, high-stake cases that the agent probably is already multitasking with. Or maybe the customer itself, in this particular case, has many active escalations going on. So this is not the only case. So this is just a quick summary. But then right below that, you see the top contributing factors. For this particular case, there is very clearly the attention scores are going up. I can review those scores. I can see how, for example, whether it's the attention scores or maybe the sentiment scores have been trending. So the sentiment is going down and the attention signals are going up, which is not a good sign. Or it also tells me there are a lot of negative signals. I can actually review those signals very quickly. All the frustration that we saw that the customer was having with the AI agent is all seen here. Or there are whatever other factors that could be contributing towards this case to be likely to escalate. I can also look at, for example, agent insights in this particular case. This agent has a high backlog. They have a fair time overlap because we do manage the shift, and we know through data that can be mapped in SupportLogic or can be brought in from your CRM, we know that there is not a good overlap between the agent, the working hours of the agent, and the working hours of the customer. But more importantly, there is not a great skill match in this particular case. So this is where right below this, you also see the recommended actions. I can, for example, as a manager, intervene. I can send a response directly to the customer. Or in this particular case, the action that is most important, that looks like as the most important action, is to actually reassign this case to a different agent. So this is where our routing agent comes in. So again, going back to our thesis of it's not just an agent working in isolation. It's agent orchestrating with each other to complete a task. So in this particular case, our routing agent is coming up with better recommendations for agents that can be actually working, or that should be actually working on this case. And this could be based on the time overlap. This could be based on the skills. This could be based on prior history with the customer, or of course, the bandwidth of the agent as well. All right. Maybe the second thing that I'm going to look at from a support manager persona is outside of a particular case, how do I actually detect trends and patterns across a cohort of cases? Now, this is typical because let's say I'm a support manager. I have a meeting coming up with my chief customer officer where I want to talk about not just individual cases, but about typical trends and patterns. So here we have, and this is something we are currently working on. We will be announcing it very soon with our next quarterly release. But what this allows you to do is it allows you to actually create a cohort of cases. You can very flexibly define them. If you see here, you have all the metadata, your case fields, your customer fields, your any custom fields. So you can basically create your filters for the cohort of cases. And then the system basically gives you a summary, not just for the case. A lot of our customers today are using case summaries at an individual case level. But this gives you the ability to actually create a summary across a bunch of cases. So for example, if I'm a support manager responsible for North America region, I can basically get trends and patterns across all cases that are impacting my North American customers. Now, in this particular case, just as an example, you see, of course, the high impact issues, you see the signal indicators, but most importantly, you see the patterns and the trends. The most important pattern here is there is an increase in case volume, something that I, as a support manager for a particular region, need to be aware of. It's not just increase in case volume, there is actually increase in escalations as well. Or, for example, it very clearly calls out maybe there are 2 agents that are handling a lot of cases. So maybe the workloads are not that well balanced. Or maybe there are certain issues in certain parts of the products. Maybe there was a new product launch and that part of the product has more issues of late. So it's actually detecting those similar cases that are related to similar products or have similar issues. Now, all of this is also possible because many of you here use our case summaries, which are, as of now, real-time on demand. What we've done now going forward is we also have auto-summarization, because once we are actually able to generate those summaries behind the scenes, then we actually can mine all of that data. So in case summaries, you have the issue tags. Now, when it has persisted, you can mine all of that data, and then you could have thousands of cases, and then you can bring all of those things together and say, OK, here are the trends and the patterns. So in this particular case, very clearly, one emerging trend for me is that the number of escalations and the case volume is definitely going up. So this is where you also see the agentic actions being proposed. So for example, as a support manager, I can trigger an escalation review, but not just for a case, but across a cohort of cases. So I can very clearly see week over week, both the number of escalations as well as the escalation percentage is increasing, which is alarming. I also see key insights, which could be, for example, in this particular case, related to 4 cases being related to the same product, same kind of an issue, and I'll dive deeper into that maybe in a moment. But then I also see who are some of the impacted customers, who are the account managers. Maybe as a support manager, I may want to give a heads up to my account manager. And of course, the top escalation reasons, again, in this particular case, it being repeated occurrence of certain kind of issues, long issue resolution times, and of course, maybe from an agent perspective, the communication is also not optimal. But again, let's go back maybe to the key insights. Here, as you can see, I can see there are 4 cases that have the same recurring problem. Maybe I want to dive deeper into that. I can now see those 4 cases. And from there, I can actually go into a particular case once again. And similar to what we did before, which was a likely-to-escalate review, now I can actually do the escalation review for that particular case. All right, so this was just a quick recap. This was from a support manager perspective, typical tasks and how our ambient agents are orchestrating some of those tasks.